Hello everyone and greetings of the day. I, Dr. Disha Vidyarthi, Assistant Professor from IIMT College of Science and Technology, welcome all my learners to this yet another educational session on the topic of ladder of effective business communication. Let us now begin this session, which will definitely enhance our knowledge regarding the basics and the significant elements of the business communication. Before starting this session, I would like to brief all my learners and the communication enthusiast over there across the screen that there is a basic difference, or you can say that important difference or the relevant difference between a general communication skill and the skills which you need while you're having certain professional or business communication at your workplaces. Let us now begin with the basic question which arises in our minds when we talk about the business communications, and what is business communication, on what do we need to know about it. So here we are having two questions. What is business communication? So let us see. Business communication refers to the knowledge exchange of information, exchange of ideas, exchange of messages within and between organization as well as with external stakeholders. It encompasses various verbal, non-verbal and written forms of communication or the information related to the business context. Now let us see why it is important, why we need to understand what are those skills, those traits, those structured formats which polish our business communication or the professional communication skills. So let us now see the answer why. Business communication is crucial for a multitude of reasons. It serves as the backbone of any successful organization and plays a very, very pivotal role in its growth, sustainability, and overall success. So you can see that it encompasses lot many things in a holistic manner, not just one dimension of the communication. It is a holistic process which we need to understand. Well, here are some key reasons why business communication is essential. Let us see. Effective decision making. See, this is one of the element which is very, very important when we try to enhance our business communication skills. Effective decision making is very, very important. If we are lacking in this area, we will be falling short in having those polished skill at our workplaces of building that bridge of good communication, polished communication, and putting across our messages and information. So it should be clear and timely communication, and it ensures that accurate information reaches to the decision makers and enabling them to make well informed choices. Forming and framing those well informed choices and the decision making process, we need to understand there should be accuracy and the clarity. Next, why it is important? Coordination and collaboration. See, these are two terms which are very, very significant at your workplaces or any of our workplaces. If you're not having coordination or collaboration, we won't be able to excel. We won't be able to have that success path in our professional lives because it is a teamwork. See, when we talk about communication, we must be having at least two entities. So for that thing, if you're not having coordination and collaboration, and it's vice versa, for that coordination and collaboration to achieve that balance, we need to have certain refined communication skills, rather business communication skills in our professional lives and at our workplaces. Third thing, enhanced productivity. Yes, definitely. If you're having good communication skills at your workplaces, and if you're able to, as a professional, if you're able to put across your things to your colleagues in hierarchy with your seniors or with your juniors, you definitely build a ladder. You definitely make or pave a certain very smooth path where you can achieve this thing of productivity, because lack of communication, miscommunication, misunderstandings lead to non-productivity at your workplaces. So for the enhanced productivity, we need to understand that we have to pass on our messages through different formats, which will be understanding or which will be dealing in the later segment of the session. And fourth thing, very, very important, employee engagement. If you see that open and transparent communication is very, very important. So for the employee engagement, you need to understand that filtered and very transparent and very structured business communication skills are highly essential at your workplaces. So these were the two terms. What is business communication? Definitely, as we know that apart from just sharing the ideas and the information, we need to follow that structured manner, which gives a structure, or which gives a tone to your business communication. And why it is important? Because certain things, collaboration, coordination, enhancing the productivity. And if you can see on the left side of my screen, they are the importance of business communication. If you can see what for certain points, if we focus on here, anticipate problems. If you are in a good and proper strong mindset of a good communicator who understands well, who communicates well, who perceives well, and even through your body language or the non-verbal signs, you are able to anticipate. Because if you're not able to anticipate the problems, you won't be able to put across the solution as well. And when you are talking about the putting across the solutions, it means you have to pass on those messages. So anticipate problems, make decisions, coordinate workflow. As we already read it, that for the collaboration and coordination, it is highly important that we need to understand that that kind of teamwork, and that teamwork will by default come in your path when we'll be having good and clear and transparent communication. And then supervise others, develop relationships. Professional relationships are highly important in your successful careers, in your successful social life, in your successful professional circle. Then manage knowledge, ideas, and creativity. See, sometimes what happens, you're having a lot of ideas and creativity inside your mind, but you're not able to put it across to the your team members, or to your leaders, or to your juniors, or while giving presentation. So not, see, having ideas is important, but how you put it across, that is also important. So that in my previous sessions also, I have told it to my learners, or explained that what you say is important, but how you say is more important than what you say. So next, see, create a clear vision and energize the employees. See, it is a chain. Business well and good and structured and strong and filtered and very precise, all these adjectives regarding the business communication, they build a very good chain and bridge and path of communication. So it gives you clear vision, and when you're having clarity in your vision, you will definitely be able to have that clarity in your message and in your communication. And then last but not the least, promote products and services. This is one of the important element in your business communication, that definitely if you're associated with any kind of organization dealing in any kind of business, be it educational institution, be it corporate offices, be it government offices, so your first and foremost thing, whatever you are offering, you have to put across to your receivers. Your receivers can be your customers, your team members, or the people from the other organization. Now let's move ahead with the next slide. Now before we start to understand the those essential elements, features, modes, barriers of business communication, we need to clear out one thing in the beginning itself, that there is some demarcating line and a particular difference between a general communication and a business communication. Let us see now formal communication versus informal. It means general versus the business communication. Business is our formal communication and general is our general colloquial conversation. Now see, everyday conversation with friends, family, or anyone else, that is general communication. Then it is informal and relaxed tone. You don't have to pay it on the much of the formats or the vocabulary or the grammar thing. You can use abbreviation as well. You can be in a very relaxed tone, very non-formal, no specific goal or objective in mind. See, while we converse with our family members or with our friends or standing in the corridors and just having a chit chat, it is just very general. You don't keep in your mind that what is your objective. Maybe you are in a very elevated mood, so you are speaking a lot. So it doesn't have to have a objective. Then furthermore, language is casual and easygoing. In your general communication, your language is very very casual, easygoing, not big difficult words, or you don't pay attention to the grammar structure of that sentence framing. Then feedback is also not always expected or structured in general communication. Sometimes you are only the speaker, the listener is a passive listener, or maybe he or she is listening to you but not responding or giving feedback. So it is a very general thing. But in business communication, let us see now, it happens in a professional setting with organization. See, business communication, why we call it a formal thing, because whole structure, the whole platform, the whole scenario is very very official, professional, regarding the language, regarding the framework of your vocabulary, regarding the structure, regarding the mode. Next, formal and serious tone. You cannot be colloquial and casual while having business communication, even when it is written or even when it is oral or verbal. Then, aimed at achieving a specific business goal. Whenever you shoot out any email or a message or a memo or any kind of meeting conversation you are having, any kind of conference you are having, definitely it is professional and having certain objective of that, whatever you are delivering it out, you're having that certain objective and goals of achieving through that communication. Now, next is language is professional and industry specific. This is very, very important point, that in business communication, we have jargon, that is, it means field specific vocabulary you need to understand. Like, suppose if we, for example, if we, somebody is of medical field or somebody is of engineering field, technology field, they must be having certain words and vocabulary which are field specific, those terms and terminology. So we need to understand, if we are dealing in some specific field, we need to have certain understanding and knowledge about the specific words and terms and terminology used in that field to have that perfect flavor of that business communication in that field. Then follows structured formats like letters, emails, reports, etc. These are certain examples of the written business communication or formal communication, certain emails, letters, requests and reports. These kinds of things have certain format. Like in general communication, we're not having any format, we can have our subjective flavor, subjective tone added to it. But in business communication, we need to follow, as in language enhancing communication skills, we need to follow the grammar rules for that perfect flavor of that communication and grammar wise structure. In the same way, if we want to have that perfect tone and color of that business communication, adding the professional pinch to it, we need to understand there are certain formats and structure which we need to follow. Sometimes it is typical, but we need to follow to give that professional and formal flavor to your business communication. And last but not the least, feedback is also important for your, for the improvement of your further business communication. Supposedly you have shooted a mail to your customer or to any delegates or any kind of your colleague, but if you're not having that response, you will not be having certain perception for the further communication. So feedbacks are very very important in your business communication. Let us move forward. Now, as in the beginning, as I said, ladder to effective communication, we need to understand, we need to put focus on certain elements as steps of those chains which we form while having those perfect communication in business and professional life. Those ladders can be, if you can see, they are the markings over here. So business communication are always goal oriented, as we already discussed, precise and polite. See, when we talk about tone, even in writing, in like if you're having an oral or verbal communication with someone, you can very easily make it out by the facial expression or the tone and the pitch. But while we are writing, like supposedly you are writing an email or a letter, or you're drafting a certain document for someone, how they'll understand the tone, that tone in the written business communication and the written professional communication will be coming from the selection of the words, by the selection of the vocabulary, by the structure which you are following, by the format which you are following. So we need to understand, we are formal, and formal doesn't mean rude. Formal means you have to be courteous, you have to be caring about the perception of the other hand also. So you have to polite, but then you can make things rigorous at times. Sometimes it happens that when you follow the structure and the format, it can be rigorous, but that is the whole idea of having structured business communication. Making sure you are communicating effectively may often depend on whether the recipient is comprehending the message as expected. Yes, as I said, that feedback is very very important for that smooth further communication. So try to give that hint in your communication that you're expecting certain kind of response and feedback from your receiver. So let us see on the What are those steps to effective business communication? First and foremost is clear aim in mind. Never go ahead in that path with a confusion in your mind, without having a clear aim and objective, why you want to do this, how you want to do this, and to whom you're going to with whom you're going to share those information and messages. So you have to have certain clarity in your mind before initiating that communication, be it written, oral, or with your nonverbal signs. You have to have clarity and that particular aim and objective in your mind. Second, befitting communication channel in business communication, and especially if we talk about in the current scenario, choosing a proper channel, choosing the correct and appropriate channel is very, very important. The person who is not using a smartphone, you cannot expect the person to read your mails and reply. So channel is very, very important, because we are living in a world of technology, and it is deeply rooted and associated with the today's whole communication process, because we all are tech friendly, we are living in a world which is tech world now. So you need to understand whichever mode, whichever channel you are using for that particular communication, it should be appropriate and suiting to your objective which you want to get served through that communication. And third, best encoding technique. If somebody doesn't understand English or any other language, you cannot offer any kind of report, any kind of proposal in that language. So you need to understand, you have to encode your messages or the information or the ideas whichever you are sharing in the proper encoding, in the proper, you have to encode that in a proper manner, giving preferences to the receiver's perception and understanding, because your whole aim and objective is that your message should be clearly understood by the receiver. So you have to encode it properly. Now, next is consider communication barriers. See, when we talk about effective communication, we will definitely have certain challenges and barriers to those communications. So you have to, when at the first place, when you are aiming at the communication, you have to have that uh, understanding that what kind of barriers you may face. So you have to have that preparation with yourself, that what if you face certain challenges, how will you overcome that, be it technological barrier or the psychological barrier or some kind of physical barrier. So you have to understand that if you will be facing those barriers, how will you overcome that. So you have to have a plan B. Now, next is well articulated message. Never write or never shoot out a business message in a very messy or inappropriate way, because it will create certain confusion, which will definitely will be a shocker to your whole aim of at the first place of having that communication. So your message should be full of clarity, preciseness, and to the point, with a polite tone added to it. And then last but not the least, again, that is check for understanding. And that understanding comes when you have the proper perception of your receiver, what they want, because this is important, that what you want to convey, but this is also important that whom you are going to convey it. So you have to have the understanding of the receiver as well. Now, next, we have come to the point and the segment where we'll be understanding, where we'll be learning or elevating our knowledge regarding the kinds of different business communication modes. In a gist, we'll be having in a very brief manner, we'll be going through the pointers, that what are those different kinds of business communication and modes as an example. Now let us see. First is internal communication, as a name itself suggests, internal. Now see the features of internal communication. Communication that occurs within an organization among its employees, teams, and departments, and it aims to facilitate smooth operations, coordination, and collaboration. So internal communication is inside that one organization, when you communicate with your colleagues, seniors, juniors, or any kind of person inside your organization. For the example, company memos, team meetings, internal emails. So these are under the internal communication. Next is external communication. Again, as the name itself suggests, external communication that take place between the organization and external parties. It is not now confined to the internal thing. Now it has reached out to the external thing. It is between the organization and the external parties such as customers, suppliers, investors, and the general public. Now it focuses on building relationships, conveying information about products, services, and representing the organization's image. Now, for example of the external communication, we can have customer emails, press releases, investor communication. So these are the examples of external communication. Now see, formal communication, as we all know, when we talk about business communication, definitely it is formal communication because it is official. Now see, what are formal communication? Is structured and official communication, and that follows established rules and procedures. See, this is very very important. In formal communication or in the business communication, we have to follow those established rules or certain protocols and procedures of shooting out that communication, usually used for important announcement, policies, and reports. For example, if you're drafting formal letters, official emails, company policies, these are all formal communication. Now, the fourth point over here, if you see, that comes informal communication. Now, the question arises that when we are talking about business communication being formal, how this element has been included in this point under the business communication. See what happens, sometimes we are at our workplaces, but off the record we are having a certain work related conversation with our colleagues. That is not formal in the sense, because officially you're not writing email, or you're passing on the letters or the memos or the written notices or any kind of messages, written messages or WhatsApp, but maybe standing in the corridor with your colleague, you're talking. That is kind of informal, but in a formal setting. So, informal communication under the formal setting, you can see the example now. Casual communication that occurs spontaneously without a specific structure. You cannot be following that specific structure, but work related conversation you're having with your colleagues or the seniors, often used for day to day interactions among colleagues. See, this is a very general and the basic example of informal communication under the formal settings in your at your workplaces. Examples: instant messaging among coworkers. Supposedly, some immediate thing has come across, and in a very informal way, you are passing on information or sharing something to your colleagues. Your colleagues are not your family members. It's not in that literal sense that the colleagues are not friends or family, but in that professional setup, you're having some informal conversation or communication, but in the context of your work arena. Now see the next, then comes okay, we have done with the internal. Now see, verbal communication. Now see, communication that is spoken or delivered orally, allows for real-time interaction and clarification. Example: face-to-face meetings, phone calls, video conferences. Sometimes what happens that we think that we need not to have any kind of preparation for the phone calls or the face-to-face meetings. We take it for granted, but we need to understand, especially the learners or the young professionals out there, the young learners out there, that even if you have to have a face-to-face meeting or even a video conference or even a small 2 minutes phone call, you have to frame whole of that structure in your mind, starting from the objective of that phone call, what you will be saying and speaking to the another person over that phone call. So you have to structure all that thing. You need not to be like that it is a very casual thing or taken for granted thing. No, even if it is a non written communication under the business communication, you have to follow those 6 steps, starting from the defining aim and objective of that communication to the understanding of the receiver. Now next is written communication. This is highly important because in today's tech world, we like in a day we in a bulk we shoot out mails to our colleagues and customers, or in marketing thing, or lot many things are there. So written communication is highly important in the formal and business communication. So communication that is in written form, such as letters, emails, provides a record of information and can be referred back to if needed. See, this is one of the point why we say that formal communication or the official communication is most of the time is written, because the written communication you can refer back. You can refer back, you can have proof, and when something is in a written documented form, it is official and it is validated. For example, business emails, reports, official documents. Now, next is non-verbal communication. See, non-verbal communication is that one element which encompasses or accumulates all the communication styles of anyone. Because sometimes it is a saying that sometimes when you don't say anything, you say a lot. And there comes the role of non-verbal communication. Whatever you are doing, you have to pay attention, you have to keep it in your mind that your body language, consciously, unconsciously, intentionally, unintentionally, giving out a message loud to your receivers and the people in front of you. So now see, communication conveyed through gestures, body language, or facial expressions and tone of voice complements verbal and written messages, adding meaning to the communication. See, that is also add on sometimes. Like suppose you are having a face to face conversation, an official meeting with someone, and if you're having a very good and perfect body language added to your verbal communication, that will be a cherry on the cake, because you have somewhere achieved that perfect balance of that good filtered and balanced communication. Now then comes two important segments under this category, that is vertical communication and horizontal communication. These are very very important elements. Let us focus first on the vertical communication. Communication that flows up and down the organizational hierarchy. See, in business communication or in professional communication or in formal communication, we need to keep in our mind that the position of the receiver in the hierarchy, if he or she is a senior, or if he or she is a junior, or some mid level, or to whom you are communicating, it plays an important and pivotal role in framing your messages. Because as the hierarchy of the receiver changes, the tone of your messages and the content changes. So in vertical communication, either it flows up in the hierarchy or flows down in the hierarchy. It involves communication between managers, supervisors, and employees or the colleagues. For example, employee feedback to managers, performance reviews, a lot many things are included in vertical communication. All the professionals must be relating with this thing. And now comes another point, that is horizontal communication. Well, communication that occurs between employees of the same or similar levels within the organization. See, in vertical communication, we follow that hierarchy rule from up to down or down to up. In horizontal, as the line itself says, horizontal is just a balanced, a smooth line. So horizontal communication is like having communication. Professional communication amongst your colleagues of the same level, like promotes what is the significance and benefit of the horizontal good horizontal communication? It promotes the teamwork. When you're having a certain clarity in your idea, in leading your team, you are having a good framework and teamwork, collaboration and information sharing. Example, interdepartmental meetings, team collaborations, discussion, brainstorming session, these are all kinds of horizontal communication. Now next is one-way communication and two-way communication. Now let us focus first on the one-way communication. What is one-way communication under this category of business communication? Communication that flows in a single direction. As the name itself suggests, one way, it flows out in a single direction from sender to receiver. Here we will not be expecting certain or the instant feedback, because it is one way. You have shooted out the information. It is up to the receiver how he or she uses that information and whether he or she will be responding to it. The receiver does not provide immediate feedback or response. As I said, that it is one way communication. Now, example, company announcement and mass email. You must be knowing that sometimes we receive a lot of marketing emails, and there's a after salutation or in the at the ending of that email, we have that do not reply. It is a like auto generated email, or it is a mass email. You don't reply. We read it out, we accumulate it, we infer it, but we don't reply. So that is the example of one way communication. But even it is one way communication in business communication, you have to follow that structure, procedures and protocols of writing out that professional content. Now two-way communication, let us see what is it actually. Communication that involves an exchange of information between sender and receiver, because here we are saying that two-way communication, so we have both the active parts, at the end of sender also and at the end of the receiver also. Allows for feedback and clarification. Like example, face-to-face conversation, interactive discussion. See, understanding these different types of business communication helps organization choose the most appropriate methods to convey messages effectively, achieve their objectives, and maintain strong relationships with stakeholders. So before moving on to the next element, I would like to brief it all, summarize it all, the things which we have just dealt in with, the kinds of business communication and their mode. One thing is very, very important, that before initiating any kind of formal communication, always have a clear objective to it. And second step should be that always choose an appropriate channel. And last, that always give consideration to the mindset and the perception and the preferences of the receiver. So let us now move to the next segment of this session. Now, barriers. When we talk about communication process, all the elements, definitely there are certain barriers which we should and must know what are those barriers and how we can overcome it. Because after overcoming those barriers only, we can achieve that a perfect balance of good, filtered, precise, accurate communication, be it general, be it literal, be it professional, be it colloquial. In any kind of communication, we must be facing, because without barriers, we cannot say if there's a lock, there's a key, and if there is a key, there is a lock. So let us see now what can be the barriers to the effective business communication. Well, barriers to effective business communication refer to any obstacle, any hindrances or challenges that impede the effective exchange of information between individuals or groups within an organization, or between different organizations. These barriers can prevent the transmission messages or ideas, leading to misunderstandings, errors, and reduced productivity. So see what kind of major effect can barriers can have. It can lessen down the productivity of any organization. It can create a lot of misunderstandings, which will by default lead to the lot of loss to your organization on different levels. So now see what can be some common barriers. Noise as a barrier, like if you're having face-to-face meetings or phone calls, there's a lot of havoc in your office, a lot of noise is there. If you're having a congested office, so you must be having a lot of noise and very clamped atmosphere. So what you can do is that if you have to attend a phone call, you can move outside that area. You can overcome that physical barrier, which is noise barrier. Now, tips we'll be having afterwards, after knowing and understanding the barriers. And next is perceptual and language differences. This is, see, this one difference is, or you can say this one barrier is almost everywhere. How? Because if you're having a two-way communication, or if you're having a communication from group to group or individual to individual, if you're not having a common code, and that common code basic will be the language barrier. If you're not having or coming equal at one place and pace of having a same code of language, you will definitely fall apart in putting across your specific messages. So always give consideration to this thing. Language is one of the important barrier. Never let this barrier come into your way of having that good and refined communication. Next is information overload. What happens sometimes, we are having a good vocabulary, good understanding of the knowledge, we are clear with our objective, but what happens, we are having lots and lots and lots of information. We are overloaded, overboarded with the information. So sometimes what happens, people lack in framing that whole information in that one assimilated form. So there comes the skill of filtering the information and processing whole concept, whole information in a very easy and simpler manner, because your objective first and foremost is that your receiver have to understand what you're going to put across. So do not let the information overload create a hindrance in making your message clear. Time pressures. What happens, this is a very common thing at workplaces. Sometimes you're having deadlines, you're having targets, so you miss out the whole point of your communication, the whole point of your email, the whole point of the letter you are drafting, the whole point of that notice and memo. So do not let this time pressure or target thing overload your mind, so that you miss out that target and objective of the or the basic core of that communication. Emotion, sometimes or almost we must, all of us must have faced some or the another time in our lives at workplaces. Sometimes we are not in a good mood, or sometimes we are a little upset or pissed off or under pressure. A lot many things, a lot many emotion upheavals are there. So kindly, it will be a suggestion to all the professionals out there, when you are having certain professional communication, even if it is just a 3 line email or 1 line notice or a memo or a message, do not let your emotions capture your mind and sanity. That will by default let you lose the calmness of your mind, which will hinder your communication process. Now next is complexity in organizational structure. What happens, sometimes we are a part of a larger team or a shorter team. Sometimes that structure or the hierarchy is complicated, intricate, so we miss out the whole point, to whom we have to ask, to whom we have to send out this email, or to whom we have to go for a meeting. So sometimes the complexity of that organizational structures creates a certain kind of obstacle in your business communication. And last is poor retention. Sometimes when we are at our workplaces, if we miss out certain points due to the poor memory thing, we don't retain, or we don't have that retention capacity, and we forget a lot of things, which eventually converts into blunders and mistakes in our further and the future communication with our delegates or the customers, or even a general day-to-day meeting. So sometimes, yes, not sometimes, always it happens that if you're having a poor retention in yourselves, you must be definitely missing out certain points. So these were some general barriers which create hindrances in a smooth business communication. So after barriers, let us see how we can overcome these barriers. Now, see, tips to overcome communication barriers at work, as we have already dealt in with the barriers of the business communication. Now, let us see what we can do. Practice active listening. So guys, I have in my previous sessions of English language and professional communication, I've always said that in communication all the four dimensions are highly important. It's not that you have to just put focus on acquiring the capabilities of speaking. It is always the four-sided, four-dimension thing, all the four skill: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So when we talk about a smooth communication process, be it a general one or the business communication, professional or colloquial or day-to-day life conversation or communication, you have to practice active listening. You have to be actively involved in that communication and conversation, so that you can retain more. And if you retain more, you will be able to process it more. And when you'll be able to process it more, you will definitely put across in your next level communication whole of the things in a very precise and clear manner. So you have to have those skills of active listening, and if it is not there, kindly practice it. Next is keep messages clear and concise. And if you are at the end of the sender, if you are the sender, always try to draft your messages, be it written or even if you are speaking, having a face to face conversation, make it very clear and concise. Do not be over the board elaborative, creating those spaces of confusion. Okay, so like leave out those places of where there's a chance of creating the confusion, and that will come if you're having longer sentences in written formats, and if you're having lots and lots of vocabulary, difficult words. So try to make it simpler, clear, and concise. Next tip will be choose the right communication channel. It is highly important. Sometimes the receiver is also very educated and qualified. You are also, as a sender, very educated and qualified. Then too you are missing out the point. It means you have not chosen the proper channel, because if the channel is not proper, your message will not be put across properly. Next, establish a feedback mechanism. If you have seen in professional arena, in different offices of different sphere. We have employee feedback things. We have even after a day-to-day meeting, we have feedback the performers and or the QA sessions or the query sessions. Why? Because in these kind of session and activities, we get the feedback, and when we get the feedback, we there are also they can be like negative feedback also, or the positive feedback also, or certain suggestions. So when we have feedback, or we evaluate all the thing, and we prepare ourselves for a better communication and a better plan and a better conversation in our next and the further communication. So feedbacks are very important to try to take and grab those feedbacks from your receivers. Then be culturally sensitive. See, this is very important when we talk about a polite tone in your business communication or in general communication, as I always say. See, you have to be culturally sensitive, especially when we talk about we Indians. We live in a multi diversified atmosphere, where we are having people of different culture, different religion, a lot many things, a lot many beliefs. So always be culturally sensitive. Do not be subjective in speaking out or discussing certain matters, be it professional or non-professional. Always be culturally sensitive, because if even if you're having a very accurate thing in message with you, but if you're not having that sensitivity along with you or added to your message, it will fall apart. Now, next is use visual aids to enhance understanding. This will work if you're having presentations through PPTs, or even without PPTs. If you're having, try to have visual aids, because it grab the attention of the people, because it creates a certain kinds of interest. See, when the thing is appealing to the eye, your mind is by default, proceeded towards that direction. Now, next is avoid assumptions and provide context. Always provide the context. Never start abruptly. Never start abruptly. Even if you are shooting out a mail, always give a reference to your previous mail. And if it is your first mail, then always give the reference to any kind of conversation or communication you have had in the past. Now, manage emotions constructively. Always try to manage and balance your emotion. Do not be subjective in any kind of communication you are putting across to your colleagues, your seniors, your juniors, especially at your workplaces. Do not let your emotions take over you. Then encourage questions and clarification. Always be a good listener, as the first point itself say, because if you are just at the giving and not at the receiving end, how will you get to know that what the other person wants? When we talk about two-way communication, if you do not understand what the other person wants, it will be just a futile thing to have that successful communication, because it will not be successful at all. Now, embrace diverse perspectives for innovation. Always welcome the suggestions, the feedbacks, and be polite in that thing. Because if you're not polite in your mindset, if you're not polite in your tone, if you're not polite in your language and temperament, definitely you will miss out the whole concept of this good and appropriate communication. Now let's see next, respect others time with efficient communication. See, sometimes we are in hurry, sometimes the other person is in hurry, or if sometimes the other person is going out for an urgent meeting, and we are saying, excuse me sir, excuse me ma'am, I have to say something. So always choose an appropriate time or saying your thing, and always value other person's time. So that is why the first element and the first feature which is added to this business communication, clear, short, and concise. So if you'll take too much of time, the person will lose interest in listening to you. Even if you're writing an email regarding your professional purpose, if it is too long with lengthy sentences, nobody will read it properly, because it will create hindrances in understanding that whole concept or the whole messages you are putting across through that email or the written content. Now, invest in communication training and development. See, this is one of the thing which be if you are a homemaker, or even if you are a person who is a professional or a student, try to invest in the communication training and development, because this is one skill which will be it is a lifelong learning thing. It will help you in having a successful social and personal relationships, be it at your workplaces or in your personal lives. So try to practice, try to learn. And if you're not having that circle around you, try to take a professional help in enhancing your communication skills through the training and development modules. Now, avoid information overload, as we have already discussed. Try to grab the information in chunks, and if you have got the information in a lengthy format, try to filter it, format it, structure it, and then pass on to the next level. Use appropriate language for the audience. Always use up, apart from using the choosing the and using the appropriate channel, always remember that you have to select the appropriate language as well for the audience or the listeners or the receivers of your information. And next is follow up on key discussion and decisions. Always before making decisions or having any kind of crucial statements, always try to have discussion and brainstorming sessions in your professional arena, so, which will elevate your business communication skills. Because business communication is not just formal, it is also polite in tone, because you give consideration to the other person's thinking also, and suggestions as well. Now, last, address conflicts promptly and constructively. Suppose if you are not able to understand what the other person has delivered to you, always come up with constructive problem statement and the solution as well which you are demanding. So be very very clear also in when you are agreeing with that thing, and even when you are disagreeing with that thing. In both the situations, you have to keep it in your mind that you have to select that structure of putting across. You don't have to be rude. Sometimes we don't we if we don't agree with something in our workplaces, at our workplaces, with certain things or ideas or any kind of proposals, be constructive in putting across that message. But always remember one point: you have to follow the polite tone. So let us summarize now today's session regarding the ladder to effective business communication. We had started with the what is the basic, what is business communication, how do we use it, what is the relevance of having acquiring those skills of having good and appropriate business communication. Then how, what are those 6 steps from aiming and objecting, not objecting but defining that objective and aim of your whole communication which you want to put across, and then giving consideration to your receivers. And then we move forward towards the kinds of different kinds of business communication, different kinds of modes we have understood in today's session. And last, in the last segment, we have done the barriers and also the tips how we can overcome the communication barriers in our business communication and workplaces. So this was it. So I offer my thank you to all the learners and viewers out there who have given their valuable time in joining with me for this session. See you all guys soon with yet another session regarding the English language and professional communication. Thank you so much, everyone, once again.